Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's my pleasure today to have a conversation with Kelly Chambliss. She is a global COO for the consulting business of IBM worldwide. She is in conversation with me based on her experience, what is happening in the global capability center market globally, especially in the last 3 years post-COVID, where everybody had thought perhaps the business will come to a standstill. The global enterprises did phenomenally well. The stock markets perhaps didn't shut down. The healthcare services possibly groomed up much faster. The retail business, e-commerce business grew up, and all of them would have been possible because there's huge tech support that got built across the world, in addition to the parent enterprises likely located in the United States. With all these changes, my conversation with you, Kelly, welcome to this conversation. I start the conversation asking you, in the last 2-3 years, what are the changes you've been observing in the enterprises wanting to adopt a global capability center market? There was perhaps 15 years back, 20 years back, there's a cost was a driver. The last 10 years, they had a worry, am I taking the right decision or not? Last 2-3 years, something seems to have changed. There is an enhanced confidence that is going on. Can you help decode, is it a confidence or what is the risk they see the last 3 years, how the old model is evolved, and perhaps the way you see the model evolving the next 3 years, the competency that is required, capability that is required, and whatever else you think you're observing as a global observer.
Thank you for having me, KSB. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. And it's a really exciting and dynamic time to be in the industry and to be in a GCC where we see just a huge opportunity to shape and transform businesses in a very real and material way. And I feel like we have so much to look forward to. So I'm happy to share a little bit about what we've seen over the last couple of years and what we expect the evolution to be over the next few. You know, as you highlighted, KSB, during the pandemic, organizations forever changed their ways of working, and it really increased openness to what I'll call distributed work, right? The term remote has been used in the past. I think it's really all about distribution of work and leveraging talent from around the world in really new and different and creative ways. And so, you know, distributed work today, if you think about it, is really, really different than it was even just a few years ago. It's more interactive, it's more agile, it's more creative, and just truly more collaborative. There's not these handoffs anymore. It's this embedded sense of creativity together from, you know, people coming together from around the world. And that's really led KSB to new and different paradigms and service delivery models that I would describe as embracing co-creation, co-innovation, co-execution, kind of collaboration I'd put in front of almost everything. And as a result, much more strategic work is happening within the GCCs, and especially application of some of the newer technologies that support digital transformations. You know, obviously the two biggest and most transformational technologies today are hybrid cloud and AI. And when you look at the amount of work being done around cloud and AI in the GCCs today compared to a few years ago, it's just been a tremendous, tremendous amount of change. So I think it's, you know, more important than ever. And the big shift I see as we look forward a bit is the GCCs are becoming almost like innovation centers, or transformation centers is a word we see here and use a lot, because it's cloud, it's AI, it's analytics, it's automation, it's edge computing, kind of that it's this hub of innovation as opposed to simply a place where work gets done potentially at a lower cost, more efficiently. Now it's really all about innovation and creativity and driving transformation. And the most innovative initiatives within many companies today are really being driven by, led by even the GCCs. And I think a big part of that shift, KSV, has been because today, almost every company in almost every industry sees themselves as a technology company, a technology business. And then you take that a step further, they're also driven in large part by the pandemic and distributed work and expectations of consumers for everything to be digital, that, you know, every company is trying to become a platform company too, and often a digital platform company. So with GCCs being at the heart of innovation and application of technologies, it's really driving that shift towards companies becoming tech companies in almost every single industry, and that shift towards companies becoming platform companies, and really entering, having the ability to offer new products, new services as a result of these digital capabilities. So I would say, as we look ahead, not only are the GCCs becoming innovation centers and transformation centers, but they're also a place, I would say one of the biggest shifts ahead that I don't think gets talked about enough is this hub of creativity, right? This ideation and design thinking kind of being embedded and a part of everything that's done in the GCCs. And that creative skill is a shift I've really seen too, in terms of people building, and we're doing that, just real deep creative talent and skills that just opens up a whole new world of possibilities as it relates to the kind of problems that are solved and the kind of work that's done in the GCCs. So I'd say, just maybe in summary on this one, KSV, that when you look back even just 3, 4, 5 years ago, GCCs were very foundational, is a word that comes to mind for me, goal often around efficiencies and cost savings. And today, almost every GCC is really working at the heart of the business, focused on achieving, the top priorities of every company's overall business agenda. And it's so, it's of course continues to be delivery at scale and with excellence. But again, it's really the biggest shift is towards innovation, towards creativity, and infusing that into everything that's done. And so increasingly, I'm seeing companies and organizations turn to the GCCs and say, what do you think? Like more open-ended questions as opposed to deliver this for me. It's more, hey, we're seeing this challenge, we're seeing this opportunity, we're seeing this potential. What do you think we should do? And then that kicks off this very creative, very innovative process. And that's why I say I think it's a really, really exciting time to be working in and to be leading and to have global capability centers as part of our service capability.
Fantastic. Kelly, this is fantastic. Just picking some threads from what you said, you did talk about distributed working is the new buzzword which is taking place. And what I presume the distributed working is that not necessary that all work needs to be done from location X. Part of the work could be done, say, location 2, location 3, location 4, and yet they're all integrated together to deliver an end value, customer value that is required. So are you saying and changing any impact metrics that is required? Impact metric, is it changing? Are you seeing an evolution of new impact matrices in the network world, where part of the service is delivered from Philippines, part of the work is delivered from multiple locations in India, part of the work is delivered from Poland? In the network world, are you seeing different impact metrics evolving, collectively leading to a net promoter score increasing? Are you seeing a trend there?
Yeah, the trend I'm seeing is an increased focus on starting with the outcome, the business goal, the business KPI or key performance metric that needs to be achieved, and then working back from that to say, okay, how do we best deliver that with our capability from around the world? You made the point and used the term networked, KSV, which I love. And when I think about networked, I think about the power of partnering and the strength of teams that span geographies and locations. But I think as it relates to metrics and impact, it's all about it's not, this work should be done here, this work should be done here. It's like, okay, together we need to achieve this outcome, this business result, and let's work backwards to figure out how we divide that work best around the world to achieve that outcome at the greatest speed and with the highest level of quality. And so it's really interesting that I think that's driving KSV a bit of a shift in the skills required within the JCCs or the GCCs. Not only is it the creative skills and the deep technical skills around cloud and AI that I mentioned earlier, but it's also about a mindset shift in prioritizing recruiting, retaining, developing people that just collaborate really naturally, like love to be a part of a team, love to say, okay, we need to achieve this goal, this outcome. Let's figure out how to do this together. It's not as much, here's your unit of work. Can it be done by 3 o'clock today? Instead, okay, let's jump on. And it's amazing the digital technologies that have enabled this and the tools available. Let's just jump on together. Often people, as you highlighted, from 5, 6, 7 different centers and countries. and let's figure out how we best solve this problem, deliver this outcome, achieve this goal together. So I think there's an increased prioritization in terms of talent development that's not just about what I would call the hard skills, the technical skills, and the ability to do the work and to build the solutions, but it's also on kind of ways of working and mindsets and people that naturally thrive in a team environment. I think is an increasing priority, because there's such potential to harness power of talent from around the world, and that requires just deep-rooted collaborative nature and skills within our teams too.
Good point. Linked to that distributed working, etc. One other thing which I want your opinion on, even the kind of leadership skills that is required in performing repeated jobs better multiple times, working with the colleagues and partners and system across the world. Are you seeing a skills also evolving beyond the hard skills, evolving change? And if you have some good practices to share, what you're observing, how people are building the capacity and skills level for delivering from multiple locations?
Yeah, great question, because it's not only about the hard skills and the ability to build a great plan and execute a plan and build and test the solutions, but it's also about what I would call ease of stakeholder management. And that really at its core is about building trusted relationships. So the heart of any work that's done and done well in today's world is all around, trust across stakeholders. And often that spans many organizations and not within a single company or organization, but it's building trusted relationships across an entire ecosystem and stakeholder group to deliver the outcome together. Because we've talked a little bit here today, KSV, about centers and talent and people coming together in different locations and centers around the world. But it's also an increasing shift in importance to be able to get work done that span company boundaries, organizational boundaries, not just geographic boundaries. And so I'd say one of the big skills, especially in leaders, that's being prioritized and even nurtured and deliberately developed is stakeholder management, relationship development, and that is a different skill set than often was prioritized in the early days of the GCCs, when it was more about execution and delivery and getting the work done. And now it's about how do I leverage the power of the ecosystem and really build deeply trusted relationships. And that often is not just about each party doing what they say they will do, but it's also about empathy, trying to constantly put ourselves and see the world through the eyes of our partners, our stakeholders, our colleagues in other organizations and in other locations. So, I guess, you used the term, and I did, I think as well, the hard skills, it's the soft skills are becoming a huge priority. Exactly. And really building that trust that enables us to deliver solutions across geographic boundaries, across organizational boundaries with speed, and so much power in that and so much opportunity, but it does take a slightly different skill set.
Interesting you said this. We have also been observing at several capability centers in India, outside India, our ability to influence stakeholders with whom you don't have any direct reporting relationship is not an easy task. It comes hard, but becomes difficult when you're 10,000 miles away. Reason I'm saying is, in your earlier commentary, you also talked about the world is moving toward cloud-based delivery, digital, etc., taking place. Also require along with that the kind of shift in the talent pool, the kind of shift in culture, because we were designed perhaps 10 years back, 15 years back for delivery excellence with value. Now we are moving perhaps when delivery gets into products, delivery getting into platforms. So platforms and products requires a different skills mindset, especially a very close, you did talk about co-creation, co-innovation, co-collaboration. If we can stitch it all together for us, co-creation, platformization, productization, talent pool requirement, what could be some of the good practices, strategies, some of the good enterprises are doing to build a new enterprise for them for 2025?
Yeah, great and quite broad question, but let me start where you started, KSV, which is the products and solutions that are being built within GCCs and even just built to power companies and organizations today are increasingly platforms, right? And that is, to your point, that's very different than building a one-off solution or tailoring an existing platform to meet certain business needs. And so, a big opportunity space that I know many of the GCCs and we are certainly focused on is what I'll call product engineering, right? And it's really about building and designing digital products, digital platforms that companies can use in a really flexible, nimble way and continue to add capabilities to as they move into new industries, new products, new services. And so this product engineering mindset is at the heart of the answer to your question, which is when you think about how do you build a great digital product, it really starts with a different process, a different way of working than building a system to support the development of non-digital products, right? So when you think about the product and being the platform, it starts, and I'll maybe emphasize a point I've already made, KSV, but starts with creativity, like put myself in the end user's shoes and think about the experience. How do we make this a world-class experience? And then work backwards from that with a real focus on flexibility, agility, terms that are used all the time, but they often aren't designed into the solutions. And they have to be when you're building a digital platform, a digital product versus a tangible physical product or systems to support physical products. And so I would say, when you ask about kind of stitching it all together, it's people, teams around the world saying, okay, the ultimate end goal is to provide this, and then really applying a creative process, design thinking at every step. It's really interesting, even when we're deep into design and development of a product, digital product or a platform today, even when we run into roadblock in testing or a kind of interesting design decision that needs to be made, you'll see people break out from around the world, not always in one room, and let's do a design thinking session. No bad ideas, Post-its, virtual Post-its. And so I would say, as it relates to just bringing this all together, we just all have to just see the opportunity, and almost, most of the net new products in the world are digital products, and building those requires a really different approach and mindset every step throughout the process. It's not applying creativity and design thinking at the beginning, but it's all the way throughout. And while you're doing that, and so we have an approach called the garage approach. And we use the word garage, KSV, because it kind of, it sends a message of creativity and collaboration and creating an outcome, right? And so it's like everything through the process, bringing everybody in, but there's still some structure to it in terms of, and that's where design thinking and some of the tools to support that come into play.
Fantastic. Tell me something. IBM is such a large organization, vast experience, perhaps a lot of consulting services that you provide to people. When you talk to your customers, when they're evolving the GCC model, what are the top 3 questions they ask you in the beginning the most? Will it work? Is understood? It will work? What are they asking you now? How should I transform? And what are your typical responses if it is not too confidential?
No, not confidential. I'd say, the first, second, and third question are almost always about access to skills, talent, capability. There's a global shortage of people who do what I just described really well and can be versatile, where kind of that full stack, full solution capability where they can be creative 1 minute and then sit down and design and build something quickly the next. And so first, second, and third question, almost always talk to us about how you attract, build, nurture, retain talent to deliver on these great goals and outcomes that we talked about earlier. So a lot of focus on that. And I will not share here broadly what we're doing that I think is unique in that regard, but I do think, back to your earlier question, leveraging the power of a global networked ecosystem of centers and teams and capabilities is a big part of the equation, because it's also risk mitigation, KSV. It's not just about access to talent, but it's risk mitigation, because we're living in a pretty unpredictable world, as we've all experienced in the last few years. And things can happen, wars can break out, pandemics, and things we never. So I think an increasing focus is not just on how do I get access to the skills, people, talent to do the work well and fast, but how do I mitigate risks too? If something were to happen in one country, how can I be sure that I have this business continuity? That I actually think, when I look back at the pandemic, KSV, I think the GCCs in large, in total, it's really almost inspiring, like how quick and smooth that transition to remote work, literally, not even people coming into a center together to work, but people working from their homes around the world, how quick that was. But it does have everybody thinking about risk mitigation and plan B, plan C kind of scenarios more than ever before. So that's a big part of the dialogue as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. The other thing I'm hearing, I want to validate that with you, Kelly. The pandemic is also brought for the enterprises globally, especially in the US, to redefine what is core and what is non-core. In the sense, in the past, they used to do it themselves for the core. What is non-core is to get outsourced, right? Mm-hmm. Are you seeing the trend of organization after pandemic, trust confidence build, are redefining what is core and what is non-core? And perhaps you see the world the next 2 to 3 years as a global consulting experience worldwide that you have. Are you seeing this exercise going on? Perhaps the model of GCC will get strengthened, or perhaps bring back, because you mentioned the previous answer, perhaps the risk is also associated. We are dealing with perhaps many things, what we thought is core, we're letting it go. Should we bring it back? Where do you see the crystal ball looks like here?
Yeah, great question. And when I think about the big shifts as it relates to definition of what's core and non-core, I think it's all driven, KSB, by the fact that so many companies with these new digital platforms and products are now becoming technology companies. Retailers are becoming technology companies. Correct. Automotive companies are becoming technology companies. I mean, you think about cars today are essentially computers with wheels, right? Correct. As opposed to, and so it's just a different, so with every company striving to become a technology company, the definition of what's core and non-core is absolutely changing, right? Because everything that's technology enabled, technology driven, that a end consumer will touch, feel, purchase, interact with is core from one day to the next. It was considered kind of back office, and today it's actually the product itself is technology. So I think that core non-core definition is being driven by so many companies across so many industries becoming technology companies. But I also want to pick up on your question and point around outsourcing. And you could maybe pick this up from some of my earlier comments, but we don't see as much, pure outsourcing, do this for me, because what's defined to be core, as I just described and you alluded to, is broadening significantly. What's business critical and what's differentiating is, includes practices in HR now. It includes supply chains. It includes things that used to be considered shared services. This is now brought to the forefront and is strategically differentiating. And so as a result, some others, and I'd love to have a deeper conversation with you about this, but what, the shift in outsourcing is more to what a term I would use, and I think is broadly used, is co-sourcing. It's doing more together and not as much just handing things over and saying, just run this for me faster, better, more efficient. It's more, how can we collectively, back on some of the earlier conversation we were having, how can we collectively across borders, across countries, across organizations, deliver a better outcome? So we're just seeing, instead of outsourcing, it's more of a co-sourcing model to more and more business processes and functions because of that shift to what's defined as strategically differentiating and what's not.
Fantastic, Kelly. Kelly, I have to ask you another question. This is to perhaps provoke, not you, but provoke the audience who will be listening. Because of the model has worked so well, are we becoming complacent? In your opinion, in all the things that you talked about, core, non-core, network world, the impact changing, measurement metrics changing, etc. If you had to look at the current leaders, if they had to aspire for more, what would one or two mantras that you would recommend perhaps they should consider, if you choose to answer this question?
Yeah, I'm an eternal optimist. So to directly answer your question, I don't see a lot of complacency. I see a lot of restlessness, a lot of desire to move faster and be bolder. And so kind of, where I started with just huge opportunity for GCCs and networked delivery centers around the world, because every company, every organization has bolder and new and different goals consistent with what we've been talking about, and are trying to figure out a way to achieve those goals faster and for those to be self-funding in many cases, right? So the consumption models, the delivery models, the commercial models that underpin all of this are changing rapidly. And so like I said, I'm an optimist, so I don't see a lot of complacency. I see restlessness. I see a desire to move faster. And so I think for me, in terms of mantras and focus, for me, it's all about prioritization and selectivity for all of us, right? There's the one thing that is finite is time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that spend money, capital is finite as well. And so how do you best apply not just the capital, but the time? Because there's endless amount of activities and new initiatives and that can be taken on in a given day, week, month. And so for me, it's like, which are the ones that are going to make the greatest impact? And really constantly think about prioritization, and that means stop doing some things too, right? I think that's one of the greatest challenges for companies today is what do we stop doing to free up capital, time, people, talent to go do the things that will really make the biggest impact? And so for me, it's really all about prioritization, selectivity. And I think that's especially true in the GCCs, all this great talent and people. How do you harness that in a way that's going to make the greatest impact on not just corporate results, but on the world as well? One big shift that we haven't talked about here that I'll mention is, there's two S words that are a part of everything that's done anywhere in the world, and especially in the GCCs: security. So everybody is striving for everything to be more secure for obvious reasons. And then sustainability, huge shift towards everything everyone does, thinking about the impact on the planet and the impact on a corporation's ability and organization's ability to achieve its sustainability goals. So in addition to prioritization, selectivity, how do you best apply talent, expertise to solve problems? I think the second big one is security and sustainability in everything. And I think the GCCs have a huge and really important role to play in that.
Fantastic. That was my last question you chose early to answer. That was the entire product is getting intelligent, interconnected, communicating, and doing a self-personal assessment. So obviously there is an element of ethics, there's an element of security, there's an element of sustainability, it's coming in. So you aptly summarized it very well. See, it was fabulous conversation with you, Kelly, and I wish we could more we have with you. Less will be the time what we're spending with you. What I would request is, when you visit India next time, do sound us through Santosh. We'll be happy to organize a session for you with the fellow GCC leaders. Give them a perspective. It is real. What you spoke are all real. It is nothing like it is 3 years hence. It is all perhaps happening the next 12 to 24 months time. So look forward to working with you, closely with you. And thank you, IBM, for supporting the GCC cause from India for the global market. Together we'll succeed. Thank you so much for your time. Fantastic day ahead for you today.
Thank you, KSB. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.